Welcome in to episode 2 of season 2 of the Glue Guys. I'm Landen Lucas here with my dad, Richard Lucas. How you doing?
Great. I saw Black Panther a couple of days
Oh,
ago.
don't tell me anything. If anybody dies or anything, don't tell me.
Okay, all right. I mean, I'll leave that up to what you. But dies.
Oh no.
But anyway, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I know your Oregon Ducks took a bad L yesterday.
Yeah.
Are you recovered from that yet? I tried to text you about the fights going on and never heard back, so I figured you were hurting.
Yeah. No, what we did is the second that we knew it was over with, TV was off, and then we went downstairs to watch UFC. So I literally have not thought about the Oregon Ducks until you just brought that up. So, I'm going to send the therapy bills to you for bringing that up. But it is what it is. You know what it is. So,
what'd you think about the Izzy fight? It's pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah, it was really crazy. I mean, it's like, you're in it and you're like, okay, he just needs to get through this. He'll be fine. But that's the beauty of UFC. We saw it with, what was it, Usman?
Yeah.
Same deal. It's like, you think it's just, you're just kind of melting this clock away almost. And the next thing you know, somebody clocks you and you're done. So
it gave me the same feeling, and to compare this to basketball, because this is a basketball podcast, it kind of gave me the same feeling as like when you have that underdog team that goes into like Allen Fieldhouse or something, and they're ahead, but you just feel like there's just something lurking, like Kansas is going to go on a run at some point. And it felt like that, he was just, every time he would get up against the cage, you were just like, I just feel something coming. And of course it just happened. It just took one punch and he knocked him out. But going to Kansas basketball, the 2-0 Jayhawks are looking pretty good. I was pretty impressed with those first two games. I don't want to get too overhyped about just two games, but I thought the whole team looked pretty good. You got Jalen, who was stepping up into the role that we kind of figured he would going into the season. You have Grady Dick, and looking great. Like he may be one and done. And, a lot of those freshmen were stepping up in bigger ways than I even thought going into this season. And that's good to see, especially coming from a team that we talked about before, had a lot of turnover. You needed guys that were going to step up into those roles. And while it was against North Dakota State and Omaha, you have to be somewhat excited about that, right? You got to take that for something. We could have looked a lot worse.
Yeah, you got to take it with a grain of salt for sure. But, it's just kind of interesting too, because, for our first podcast, it was all these projections, like who do we think and what might happen and all of this, and then all of a sudden now you start getting into the actual game playing, and you can start going, oh yeah, we were talking about Grady and how he was gonna, he had a chance to be pretty good, and we had Jalen was had his chance to really be the leader of this team, and all of a sudden now you're starting to see this right from the beginning. I mean, obviously, these are lesser opponents, so you would hope that KU would do what KU does, but it still was encouraging to see that it felt like they were playing with confidence and playing well, and there wasn't a sense of lag, which that was my big thing, was just that lag a little bit, like we got this, or we don't really care. Or you look across, you don't see a North Carolina, or you don't see a big, Villanova. You see an Omaha across. Well, how is that mentally going to impact this team? And they seem to handle it pretty well.
Well, what was interesting was I kind of felt that in the first preseason game against, I think it was Pittsburgh State. They started off like down 17-2 or something like that. So at least they got it out the way, and then since then they've looked pretty good. And another guy that I was impressed with was the big fella, Uday. He's really stepped up, and I think, we'll go over the Duke game later on in this show, but I think he's going to be a big part of that team. And he's answered a lot of the questions that I think that we've had about the bigs, and will continue to answer those. But what I thought was interesting was Coach Roberts stepping in, going straight to the small ball rotation. And that's who we're going to have on today. So I'm curious to kind of get his thoughts and opinions on things and how he feels so far taking over for Coach Self. I have a quick question for you before we do bring him on. If you're in that role as Coach Roberts coming in for the great Coach Self, how are you handling this? Is this something where you're, pretty much just an extension of Coach Self, where everything he, is kind of wanting to do, you're just going out there and implementing it? Or is this a chance for you to kind of, put your own thoughts into action? And do you think that Coach Self, is the type that is giving him that freedom? But yeah, how are you handling that as a coach in Coach Roberts' spot?
So how I'm handling it and maybe how Coach Roberts handles it are probably going to be two different things. Because, I don't know. I mean, because of the fact that it's not like Kansas is broken and that this is a coach that got let go halfway through the season, and you have a interim or a coach step in and decides, hey, I want to change a bunch of things because what was happening was not working. That's a completely different scenario. We're dealing with, first of all, it's a smaller suspension. It's not very long. He's going to be back here pretty soon, and so I think that he's been with Coach long enough. He knows what Coach is going to say. He knows what Coach is going to do. He knows how he's going to, he's going to rotate. I mean, I bet you he could do that in his sleep. So if you think about it, why go in and completely blow things up or change things too much? Now, yeah, you can put little spins on it. Maybe go smaller than, like you said, or something like that. But I don't think he's going to go too radical from just the day-to-day of what Coach Self would do, because this is something that he's built and it's been pretty good. I mean, national championship says that what he says is probably going to work. So that's what I think that I would probably. I don't know what Coach Roberts is going to do ultimately. It's his ship now for the next few games, but I would stay the course if it were me.
Yeah, well, let's bring him on and ask him those questions. So let's go ahead and bring on Coach Roberts. How have things been since the championship and everything? I haven't talked to you since then.
It's been great. It goes by fast. You're so excited, elated, all that stuff, and then turn around and get right back to work. That first week of recruiting was great, because everybody's calling you the champ every time you walk in the gym. Hey, and then hey, what's up, man? So, and then by the second week, they're going, hey, man, forget about you. Everybody. So that's what we did to everybody too. So no big deal. How's the family? Everybody's good?
Everybody's great. Everybody's doing great. I have my second little one, so introduce the baby girl to the family.
That's awesome. You got to bring them to town, man. You got to see everything.
I know. I think I'll definitely be out there soon. Hopefully, I know I keep saying that I haven't came out, but I'll be out there, and then hopefully, eventually, I'll get the whole family out there.
You still doing the poker stuff?
A little bit. Yeah.
I want to see you on TV. I want to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit.
So Coach, hey, good to see you again.
Great to see you.
And you know what? We had our inaugural Glue Guys last year, and you were one of our first guests. I mean, you were like early in it. So thank you very much, because we like to think that we had our first year. KU gets a championship. So, you know what I mean? We put that kind of correlation together.
Exactly.
I know it's not right, but that's kind of how we do it. But I wanted to chat with you a little bit. We were, Landen and I were just talking a little bit about the fact that you've now had to kind of move down the row here a little bit for these first few games. And so I guess is when you are kind of interim for those games, do you just kind of go, we do everything exactly the way Coach would do it? Like, I'm not trying to change a thing. Or are you saying, hey, I'm the head coach right now, so I've been a head coach. I know what it means to be a head coach, so I'm going to do some of the things that I think is best for this team. How do you handle that in this kind of short time in that chair?
Well, I think in a short time, if it was something where you're intern for the whole year, I think it's a different scenario. You're interim for 4 games. We are going to do things the way coach wants to do them. Coach is with us every single day, practicing. He's not there on game days at all, and we can't have any contact with him on game days at all. But we try to follow suit in the way he would want to handle the games and handle our guys. We do talk about rotations and guys getting in the game and what we're trying to do and how we want to attack somebody both offensively and defensively. So he's totally part of everything that's going on.
What has been the biggest thing through 2 games now, that going through preseason and offseason, now with this turnover, with this new team and a lot of new people stepping up, what has been something that has stuck out through these first 2 games that maybe you weren't expecting?
I don't know if I wasn't expecting it. I think we've shown flashes to be really good defensively and really, really active, which we haven't done that as much in practice. So in games, that has been a pleasant surprise that we are capable of doing that. We're very young in the pivot, which you know, I wish we had you here. It'd be a lot different. And that stuff, just trying to get these guys to understand how to guard in the post, what they need to do, how to guard ball screens and everything. And the major thing offensively is trying to get our big guys to screen properly and make sure they cause a disadvantage.
Because Uday, he runs to the hoop so well after screening. It's just getting a body on somebody is what I noticed. Like it's the opposite of me, because I was good at setting screens, and then I would always get yelled at for not rolling hard enough. And I feel like, you know, his rim running afterwards is elite, and he's athletic. But it's just like the angle and how he approaches those screens, he could sharpen up a little bit.
And instead of him worried about getting causing a disadvantage, he's going, well, let me get out of it as fast as I can and run to the rim. But then he doesn't understand, well, if you didn't screen the guard, then the guard is guarding our guard, and we can't throw it to you anyway. So we've been going over it a lot with him on that. KJ Adams is playing some 5, a small ball 5. Now Zuby really does screen. He screens, but he doesn't get out of them as quick. He needs to get out of them a little bit faster. So, you know, but that's going to happen early in the year. We know that. So it's been a pleasant surprise with us defensively at times. Offensively, we've gotten stagnant a few times.
So, Coach, you got you know, this team that, and big pieces of this team. I know you have a lot of new faces, but big chunks of this team. You know, with Jalen and I'm thinking the other kid are from last year, Juwan, or from last year. Was there any sense of any type of hangover from last year? I mean, or did they come out laser focused, like, hey, the past is the past, you know, but we got a new job to do this year.
Yeah, coach has done a great job of letting the guys, you know, after late night and guys got their rings and all that stuff, coach said, hey, man, the past is the past now. Right. That's over with. That was all about the team from last year, what they accomplished. You know how coach is. Hey, you guys haven't done crap at all. Some other guys, you know, you haven't been in this role before. Like there was no pressure on you, Joseph, last year. There was no pressure on you, KJ, last year, because guys were in front of you.
Right.
Now the pressure is on you to deliver. So, you know, we've gotten past that. I think our guys understand that. Jalen Wilson knows he's in a different role. We need him to be a marquee guy, which he wants that. DeJuan Harris, we need him to be a marquee guy. Kevin McCullers needs to be a staple guy because he's been in the league playing at Texas Tech and then coming here, and he's fit like a glove with their team. And then let those young guys get better. Let them get better. You know, Grady Dick's going to be a tremendous player, and MJ Rice, and you know, and Ernest and Zuby, but give them time to grow as well.
Something that we're going to go over later on in the show is these big time early in the season games against really good competition, like a Duke Champions League and stuff, or Champions Classic and whatnot. What are your thoughts as far as how to approach these early season games? I mean, I know during my time there, it felt like there were some seasons where we would play pretty bad and then actually have a good season, and vice versa. You know, so how do you approach this? Is it something where, you know, you're really going in there trying to just learn things? Obviously you're trying to win, but you know, what are your thoughts on these early big time matchups against a team like Duke?
Well, something that we talk about, and coach talks about this all the time, but this is not a make or break game. for your season. There have been times, and you know it, you've lived through it, where we played great in the tournament and had an average to good year for us here. And then it's been time that we've gotten beat bad and didn't play very well and then had a great season. So we're going to look at this as a great opportunity to play some big boy ball, which we talk about. And you get to play on a great stage. You get to play against guys you played against, you know, from high school and all that stuff. And it's a great atmosphere. But hey, let's try to get better. Let's try to get better as a team. Let's try to grow from this. And also trying to get them to understand that in the last 2 games, we probably got away with some stuff, either defensively or offensively, because we were maybe even more talented or more athletic. No, that won't happen in this game. You're just not going to out-athletic Duke. You're just not going to outrun them. You're just not going to out-physical them. They have the same level of talent, athleticism that you have. Now you have to, as we always talk about, compete. You got to be able to play hard, play physical, and think and know what's going on. And that's what competing is all about.
So, Coach, I know that, you know, the most teams, and especially those good teams, they take one game at a time, right? Your Duke is really all that you're concerned about, you know, next, and then you go from there. But I'm sure you peeked a little bit into the Big 12 this year, and just saw kind of because it's going to be pretty deep, as you know. So, are there any teams that you look ahead and you go, this is going to be a dogfight, you know, for us to get? Is it Baylor? Is it West Virginia? I mean, like what are those teams in the Big 12 this year that you're like, man, this is going to be hard?
The one thing about the Big 12, and we look at a lot of teams like that, not anybody else. Because, you know, you remember last year when we were playing, there was a time period in February, I think we were playing Iowa State. And Iowa State at that time was in last place in the Big 12. But they were ranked 17 in America. So that just goes to show you what the league is like and what you're playing against. So we don't kind of look ahead that way. We're just saying, hey, we know Baylor's going to be very good. We know Texas Tech will be good. Oklahoma will be very good. Texas is always one of the most talented teams in the country. So there's a lot of good teams, You know, Oklahoma has a lot of guys back that are good players. So they could be really good. Oklahoma State, you know, so you just never know. So what we do is try to take it one game at a time, concentrate on the non-conference schedule. You know, after this game, we play Southern Utah, then we're going to the Bahamas, where there's a ton of talent, Tennessee, Dayton, all of Wisconsin, all those teams there. So we've got a long road to go before we can even worry about the Big 12.
Coach, before we let you go, I know last time that we talked, we didn't get to ask this question, but now we got you back on here. I want to know what one of your funniest or most memorable Bill Self stories are, because we've gone over a few of them on here, and there's some funny moments I can remember. You've been with him way longer than I was, but what's something, it can be dating back to the early days with him or more recently, something that people may not have heard yet, that you're allowed to share?
I'm allowed to share, but
I know there's some. I know there's some that you can't. But.
I'll tell you, one in recruiting, I don't know if I ever told you this one, Len, but the one in recruiting back when we were at Tulsa, we were trying to recruit a kid who was a top 50 kid in America. And for Tulsa to get a top 50 kid in America would have been really big. Mm-hmm. And we ended up getting him. He ended up not being as good as we thought it was going to be, but we got it. And but going to his house, we went to his mom's house, his house, for the first time to meet the mom face to face. And when we get to the door, she opens up the door, and Coach is like, "Hey," you know, her name was Sandra, and he goes, "Sandra, how are you?" And he walks right in and gives her this bear hug, like just bear hugs. I never met her before, but just talked to her on the phone. Yeah. So he gives her a hug. So kind of, you know, everybody's kind of not relaxed, more relaxed. So then we go and we sit down, and Coach is going through his whole spiel, and Coach will sometimes flub his lines and what he's saying because he was talking really fast. So he says to her, "Hey, let me tell you something. We think about your son 24/7. He is important. We have got to get him in our program, the whole thing." He said, "I'm telling you, just last night, me and Coach Rob are laying in bed, and we're talking about," and she goes, Whoa, 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 whoa. Hey, that's your own brother. That starts laughing and he goes, whoa. That's not what I meant. All right, so, and talking to it, and it broke the ice. We were laughing for about 15 minutes. And we ended up getting the kids. So he'll flub a line from time to time. He's gotten better at that in his old age. He won't flub like that.
That's hilarious. Well, thank you for that. And thank you for coming on today. I know you're busy taking over the head coaching role and whatnot, but we appreciate your time. And obviously, good luck for the rest of the way and with Duke on Tuesday.
Well, I appreciate it. Hey, get your behind out here. So you can help me with these big guys and tell them what to do. Okay.
I will for sure.
All right. See you guys.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Thanks,
guys. See ya.
All right. Well, that was good. That was a funny story.
Right. Pillow talk. You never know what happens with pillow talk.
Coach Roberts were in bed last night. Oh man,
that's great.
Oh, that was good. But yeah, no, it was good catching up with him again. I think that he's such a good fill-in for Coach Self, being with him for so long, having that head coaching experience at St. John's. I mean, if you want somebody his team early on and against a team like Duke coming up on Tuesday, he seems like he fits the bill very well.
Right. And the thing is too, is that if you think about this is I know he said what he just said about it not being, we're not putting too much emphasis. It's just another game, that kind of stuff. At the end of the world if you lose. But I would venture to bet that he's probably, even though he's been a head coach before, he's probably going to be a little bit nervous about this game. I mean, it is Duke, it is national television, it is an opportunity for him to really show that he can, be in charge of a massive program like KU. So I'm sure it's gonna, he's not gonna sleep normal the night before.
He wants this for sure. I know he does.
Sure.
And I'm sure the prep going into it is at an all-time high.
Right.
And that's why I really do, appreciate him taking this time because Tuesday, it's coming up quick.
Right.
And that's a big time matchup. And we're going to learn a lot about this team. What we think now about this team either is going to be enhanced and this team is all of a sudden, we can contend, or there's a chance that it goes the other way. And obviously there's always the overreactions and it's not the final say so for the rest of the season. But a game like this Champions Classic against Duke will really get a lot of those overreactions out of people. So I'm curious to kind of see, how we come out of this game on the other side. And we'll get into a little bit of a breakdown later. But before that, I'm into our sub in, sub out real quick and ask you a little bit about college basketball and what they should do with scheduling. So let me set the stage a little bit before I know you struggle with these sub in or sub out. So
because you make them so hard. Like, it's am I in, am I out? I mean, whatever is yes and no. I don't know. I mean, come on.
Do you want sub yes, sub no?
Sub yes and sub no.
I mean, so here's
I got it. I'll write it down this time.
Okay.
I'll write it down.
Okay, here's the thing. So there was a lot of talk around college basketball media, and I was listening to one of the shows on the Field of 68. Shout out to our bosses. But they were talking about how that first day and first few days of college basketball, it landed, I believe, on a Tuesday, which was perfect because it may have been Monday, but there wasn't a ton that Tuesday, Wednesday, where there's really no football, and any competition. There wasn't a bang that college basketball really comes out with. I know that they used to do that thing where they would do, I believe it was like 24 hours.
24 hours, yeah.
It's something kind of gimmicky that they throw out there, but there wasn't something that really gets your attention, like, college basketball is here and starting. Now, I know they tried to do that with the Champions Classic that's coming up, and that's a great thing that I love, and I love playing as a player. But it's not that opening day. You got people at their home courts, Kansas playing some big team in Allen Fieldhouse, and so an idea that was thrown out there was something similar to the Champions League. And for those who don't follow soccer very well, in European soccer, what they do is they take all of the top teams from each league around Europe, and then they put them into a tournament style competition that goes throughout the season. Right. And it'll just every now and then you'll take a break from your normal league play and then go pop over and play a Champions League game. So the idea was that you take the similar format and you apply it to college basketball, and you take the league winners from Big 12, SEC, and even some of the smaller conferences, and you put them into this tournament throughout the season, with night one being round one of that tournament. So you would take the number 1 seed, Kansas, and match them up against the winner of the MAC League or whoever the last seed would be. And then you would do it that way. And then throughout the season, you would take breaks to go play those games. There was some mixed reviews on that. I want to know, are you subbing in or subbing out on this in-season tournament, similar to what NBA is talking about trying to do, some kind of in-season tournament to get things going with college basketball?
So I'm subbing out.
Okay, tell me why.
So I like I understand why there is a feeling like we want to have something to hang our hats on and say college basketball is here. We're ready to roll, right? But here's the problem I think you're going to run into. Football dominates, and that's not going to change with anything that college basketball or the NBA does. It's not going to change anything. So that's why the reason why I think the NBA, and I hope that they don't try to change anything. But that's why from what date on is it NBA time?
After the Super Bowl?
No. When's the unofficial start, in my opinion, or in the opinion of a lot of people?
I don't know. Tell me.
Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Christmas Day is when they have all of those big time matchups. They wear the different colored uniforms. To me, that's just kind of because NFL is starting to wind down. That's when you say, okay, now let's turn our attention to the NBA. There's no reason to try and fight against a behemoth called the NFL. Because I can tell you right now, if you start trying to do this tournament that you're talking about, which again, I love the idea of it overall, but if you try to do this and it falls on a Saturday where Alabama's playing against Georgia, you're just who's going to even take the game? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to win. It's going to lose. And so everything you're trying to do and all the money and the expense and all the because you're talking about trying to have something go throughout the year. I mean, that's expensive. Coaches don't love that because they want to know who they're playing and all that. Think about the preparation and all that. I mean, when you get to the NCAA tournament, yes, you have to be able to be nimble and change on who you're playing and stuff. But I mean, I don't want to mess with that during the year. I've got a non-conference to try and dominate. I've got a league to try and win. I don't need to mess with any of the other stuff. So in the end, in my opinion, is college basketball does not need anything like this. Let the NFL, let college football dominate the fall. That's fine. And then when that starts to wind down, if you want to do something around that time, some sort of tournament in December, I'd be totally for that. But anything before that, I think is a waste of resources.
All right. I am going to sub in on this.
Okay.
I see your points, but I think that this would be great for college basketball for a few reasons. One, those opening few days did fall on really empty days for as far as sports go. I mean, baseball season just finished, football season, not a lot going on. As far as, Monday night's already over. You still have Thursday night coming up, but those games have been terrible. I'll tell you that.
That's true.
Those games have been terrible. And I feel like college basketball can take advantage of that Tuesday, Wednesday slot, not only for that first round and opening day, but then moving forward. I think it builds a lot of hype as far as there's just more to talk about. People love March Madness so much because there's just, it's that tournament feel. It's just one game. You know, you get these matchups that you may not usually see. And I believe that this would just, I mean, you're talking about Atlanta, Omaha, or a lot of these teams playing, you know, not even Division I teams that they're blowing out by 40 points. It's really hard to get any kind of media attention or excitement about any of that. I feel like you add this in, you may grab a segment or two on ESPN and to talk about it. You may grab a little bit of storylines, you know, talking about who's matched up against who and some upsets that might, you know, come about. And I think the other thing that it adds is that little bit of that competition between leagues, similar to the, you know, Big 12 SEC Challenge or whatnot. You want to figure out like who the best league is. And I think that it's not the best indicator because obviously you would just be pulling one team from it, but you kind of have that pride attached to it as well. Like, hey, our league is moving forward, or for those smaller leagues to have a chance. As far as preparation goes, you know, what you do is you schedule this out. So the first game, you know, about weeks in advance before, because it's released when the schedule is released. And then from there, after everybody plays that first round game, your next game wouldn't be for a few weeks anyways. And so then you would have time to know that game's coming up. You just fit it into your season. And I just spice things up. It's something that I think I was excited for college basketball this year because of this show and because I have a chance to now follow it a little bit closer instead of being overseas or something like that. And college basketball comes around, it's day one, and I can't, like, what am I going to get excited about? You know, like I'm like trying to turn on the TV to find like something college basketball related to watch or whatnot. There's nothing because there's no storylines really that can be even talked about or hyped up.
Okay, all right. So I got something then.
Yeah.
You yourself said that a potential first round mythological tournament is Kansas versus like the MAC winner.
You're going to get some bad matchups. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It's like, what's the difference between that and
you're also
like, you know, ESPN's like, oh, we're going to cut to KU versus the MAC winner and see what I mean, come on. It's no
but
difference.
I believe that you'll also get those the winner of the Big Ten versus the winner of the Pac. I mean, eventually you meet in the middle and have some stuff. And there's a chance of the, you know, upset between the SEC and the MAC, you know, or I keep saying MAC conference, but you know, there's some conference out there, the Mountain West or something. And, you know, I'm curious to work those seedings and stuff, but there's some ways to get some good matchups. And on top of it, I mean, anything's going to be better than some of these matchups. And you get the storyline of filling out the bracket early on. You know, you can do some competition, some kind of competition through, you know, where you try to predict the winner and stuff, similar to the March Madness, you know, at the end of the season. So I just feel like they need to do something. This is something that can just grab a few headlines, spice some things up. There's some storylines to talk about. And I know that coaches are, I shouldn't say scared, but they're not really into having, because something that was brought up was, hey, Kansas plays Indiana in a few weeks. Just move that Indiana game to the first game and have Indiana come into Allen Fieldhouse. Well, I guarantee you that coach isn't really loving having to go into Allen Fieldhouse and play that first game. Something, you know, like this may force a little bit of those matchups, and I just think it'll bring a little bit of excitement if they had some. So I would sub in. I just think they need something, and right now there was nothing. They had that Gonzaga Michigan State game on the Carrier, which was fun. I mean, it was fun to watch. They had a few storylines that they could snag from, you know, football and everything going on, but I think they need to be creative in how to grab a few more, and this could add that.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I see where you're going with it. I guess my gut just tells me that it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
It's just you're talking about football. It's just too absolutely like a big old something blocking the sun is just going to put shade on whatever college basketball does. And then the other thing too is that, you know, no different than in March, college basketball dominates everything. There's nothing that can touch it. So imagine if all of a sudden the USFL or whatever league that the NFL or whatever those sub leagues tries to do some sort of Super Bowl during March Madness. It's never going to work. It's not going to do anything because there's just too much of a lead, so to speak. So I don't know. I guess I can see both sides of this,
I think it makes sense. I don't see the downside as much. I guess some budget stuff, money wise, but I think that NCAA has enough budget to at least give it a shot, see how it does.
Yeah.
It's worth a try. Moving on, we have a big matchup on Tuesday against Duke, number 5 versus number 7, top 10 matchup.
Right.
2 great programs. It's going to be very interesting because we got 2 different coaches that than you would expect to see in a Duke Kansas matchup. I believe it's going down in Indianapolis, which gives me bad flashbacks personally, because I don't know if you remember what happened when we were in Indianapolis, but it wasn't too good. That was the famous Coach Sel vodka game against Kentucky, where I think that was my worst loss maybe ever.
Oh yeah, that was when you guys lost by
I think at halftime we were down 30 or something.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
Or no, we may have actually kept it close in the first half. I don't know. I just remember it was bad. Practices were not very fun after that. And that wasn't a fun game for me. But they're back there. I don't want to bring any bad omens, but I think they've won a couple times since then. But back there against a Duke team that has even more turnover than Kansas as far as the new guys they're bringing in. I think it's one of the best recruiting classes that college basketball has seen in a while, with a new head coach coming in to take over for Coach K. So a lot of moving pieces there. It's going to be a fun matchup. I want to ask you, starting things off, as a coach, I know we talked to Coach Roberts and what do you think you're doing as far as preparation for this going into one of these early season games? And, what are your feelings on some coaches like it, some coaches don't? Do you prefer a matchup like this front loaded on your schedule, or would you rather have a few more, cupcake games before going into a matchup against a team like Duke?
So it's, Coach Roberts alluded to the fact that when I asked him about kind of status quo or that he's going to just continue, which is what we thought, right? Well, he's going to do exactly what Coach Self would do, and having been Coach Self's right-hand man for so many years, he knows exactly what Coach would say and do in certain circumstances. So I feel like as far as preparation for Duke, that part is going to be kind of easy on that side. Now, what's different is it's a whole different Duke team, it's a whole different Duke coaching staff, right? So you start thinking about now the new coach, I think Coach Snyder on the other side, he is not an interim coach. He is somebody who is going to be, this is his ship. So do you come in and like we just talked about, do you just kind of stay along, kind of what Coach K did and does, or do you come in and say, hey, listen, this is my deal, and I want to change this and I want to change that. So I'd be interested to see kind of, really, I don't know what he's obviously done off the court, but on the court, do they run similar offense? Do they do something different? I mean, so that's going to be interesting for us to see. Now, to answer your question about early season matchups, I actually do like it. The reason being is that I think it gives you that chance to learn, because really, win or lose against Duke, it kind of doesn't matter, really. I mean, kind of what Coach was saying. I mean, if they take an L, they take an L. It's not gonna change anything. If they win, great. It's still not gonna change anything long term. Really, what we're hoping is we want to get that barometer. You and I just talked about earlier in the show. When you're playing against the Omahas, you're playing against the North Dakotas and all that. Yes, it's great, but you have to take that with a grain of salt. Mm-hmm. We really don't know what this team is like until they play the likes of a Duke. So I almost liken this to restaurants. They do these soft openings almost, where they do it a little bit beforehand because they want to see where the pressure points are and what all of a sudden cracks. Well, I think it's similar in this. We're gonna find out truly against a top 10 team where this KU squad is at and where the pressure points are and what needs to be truly worked on and fixed. So I think that the way they have it scheduled, get a couple ones just to get the flow under your belt, and then playing in this Champions Classic, I think is really good for Kansas and really good for all four of those programs.
Yeah, well, I'll say this as a player playing at Kansas, I think it's really important. And part of the reason is you have such a long preseason leading up to the start of the season, and you just battle and practice against those same guys. And when I say battle, I mean, at a school like Kansas, you are top to bottom pretty good. So practices are your games, and you get kind of sick of playing against each other so much. And when you start the season, it's nice to play against somebody else, but it's not as meaningful, when you're going out there winning by 30 and stuff. It's tough to really have that feeling like you're going out there and really getting to compete at the level that you've been waiting for this whole time. And scheduling, having something like the Champions Classic early on your schedule as a player was so nice because it gave you something to look forward to, and it gets you something to like get up about. And it's really tough. I know for those freshmen, it may be a little bit easier to get up and be excited first games in Allen Fieldhouse and whatnot. But I'm telling you, my junior, senior year, like it wasn't as fun because you're just coming off of those tough practices, battling in practice. You want to go out there and compete in a high stakes situation against another good team. And you just don't get that feeling early on. And Duke and Kentucky and Michigan State, those other three teams in the Champions Classic, gives you that feeling. And I really like it. And as a coach, I would love it as well for those same reasons you said. I think, fans can just overhype a little bit
the importance of it
coming off of overreaction to how you performed on those games, but you can tune that out. It really does give you a lot to learn about your team and a lot to prepare for, because those are the type of teams that you're going to have to beat come March if you want to make a deep run. And something in this Duke game that I'm going to be very curious about is the size. They're starting two guys over 7 feet, I believe. And you're on our side, at least in the first few games, starting KJ Adams as your starting big, which is, I think Jamari Traylor might have been a little bit bigger than him. Now, I love a lot of the things he brings, and he, hustles. And we saw it even last year a few times, even in big games with limited minutes, he would come in and know how to do his job right, which is great. The question I have is, like, game one, he gets, I think, 8 or 9 offensive rebounds, and that's great and all. The other team's tallest guy was not that much bigger than he was, and I know as a rebounder, as a rebounder, and as somebody who inside scorers and stuff, there's a big difference between going against 6'7", 6'8", and going against 7 feet, 7'1". And so it's going to be really interesting to kind of see if that rotation is something that can work against a team like Duke. And then you have guys like Uday, who looked great and all that, but this is going to be another step up. I think that he's going to end up being a huge factor in this game for Kansas. And we're going to have to see, based off of him, is he ready to take those big minutes? I think if he goes out there and plays well and kind of does what he's been doing, rim running really well, finishing well, all that stuff, I think there's a chance that he has, maybe takes over the starting role, definitely starts growing in minutes a lot quicker than the coaches were expecting.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is, you nailed it when you're talking about the bigs. But, there also goes the other direction, because this is almost like you can kind of call it almost like a chess match. In the sense that 7 feet can be difficult in that regard, like we were talking about. But also for a 7-footer,
there's
it's not always easy to guard smaller guys and to deal with smaller guys who are oftentimes are going to be quicker than you are. And so it's like, man, there were times I remember, in college myself, I was an undersized inside player and I was playing against 6'11", 7 feet. And I used, my speed, and I felt like I was almost equally as strong as them, to just be an annoyance. And so, who knows? It might be a situation where they feel like they can't roll out, two big old 7-footers and they need to go small to counter. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but but that ultimately, it's going to be fun because, again, this is two big time programs going against each other. And so it's like, what, it's no different than the NFL when you got, the best scoring offense, the number one, defense. It's like, well, what's going to give in a circumstance like that? So
it will be fun, and it's going to be fun to see those coaches' adjustments made by two guys that are not Coach K and Coach Self.
Right.
And I personally, I know I'm probably biased, but I give the edge to Coach Roberts in that situation because of his experience at St. John's and because of just his overall coaching experience with Coach Self.
Right.
To make those in-game adjustments, because something that Coach Self was always great at during my time there was those in-game adjustments, just throwing out, seeing what is the openings are and what you're lacking in and maybe what edges you have, and then exploiting those and making those changes in game, something that we may not even practice leading up to the game. He just sees it live and gets a feel for it. And I think that Coach Roberts should be able to do a lot of that in an early season matchup where both teams are going to have to make changes throughout the game. One thing that I'm looking forward to is seeing those freshmen. I mean, I mentioned Uday already, but another guy that's looked really good in his first game back, he missed the game 1, but played game 2, was MJ Rice. He looked like he had that Wayne Selden, NBA ready body already coming out of high school. And then Grady Dick, who's looked awesome. Is he the same? Because I tell you what, if he goes out there and plays well, there's always that freshman, I feel like, in the Champions Classic that goes in with a little bit of hype and then comes out with next level. I remember Andrew Wiggins put on a good performance against Duke my freshman year. And, you see that a lot of times where somebody will come in with, even on other teams in that Champions Classic, and then come out the other side. And it's like, okay, that guy, he's ready for prime time. He's ready for that big stage. It's one thing to be playing on ESPN Plus against North Dakota State and Omaha. And it's another thing playing on prime time ESPN against Duke, another top 10 team. So I am really curious, and I'm curious to see how they respond to that situation. And it will tell you a lot about this team. Now, there's going to be a lot of changes throughout the season, but I think that you can start to get a gauge for who's going to be stepping up in those big moments. Will Jalen Wilson be? He's shown that he's that leader in those early games. Is he going to be that same, alpha dog when it comes to a game against Duke in prime time? And if you start getting some of those answers, this is a question that we can get into another time, but this is overreaction from the first 2 games. I think that this team has a chance to be better than last year's team. And I know that's tough because last year's team won a national championship, but a lot of people are looking at their run to the Final Four and the championship, as forgetting about some of the earlier season struggles and stuff that this team went through. And so we'll see how it is. That's my.
You're such a fan. You're such a fan.
I watched 2 games. I watched 2 games against these easy games, and I already come to this. But
North Dakota State and Omaha, man, we're the best.
Hey, I'm telling you,
if you're saying they're better than the team that won the national championship,
that team that won the national championship, they played great down the stretch, as good as you could to win the national championship. But I'm just saying that there were a lot of flaws throughout the season. They figured it out. I will say they figured it out. But this team is good. And top to bottom, there's guys who in our preseason thing, I didn't even really think could make impacts, like a Bobby Pettiford, who was a guard that came off the bench. There's a lot of guys that all of a sudden you're like, okay, I see the potential. Now, like I said, we're gonna have a lot of answers here in the next
Wait till after Tuesday before
and I may change my
proclamations like this, because it's a whole different beast when on Tuesday night. So then we can, next time we meet, if they look as good as what they have the past couple of games, then we can start articulating kind of, okay, maybe this is where we're at. But it could be, they could lose by 25. Grady has 8 points, and we're saying a totally different thing.
100% they could. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't think so. I personally think they'll win the game, but it's going to be interesting. And obviously this is why these early season games are so fun, that are, hyped up. You got Duke, then we're going to go to the Bahamas soon. Coach Self scheduled I don't know if he scheduled it, but they had the suspension in perfectly so he could go ahead and take a nice little trip to the Bahamas, but it's going to miss
some games. All right.
Yeah, I know. Just make sure I'm good for the Bahamas trip.
Right. No question.
No, but it's going to be fun to see this team and see them in these next few games and see my overreactions come in the next few games, because now I am a fan. I am just a fan watching. I am overreacting a bit, but I think that there is a little bit on that last year's team that is based off of them winning the national championship, which they were great. They won the national championship. I just feel like there's a chance. So we'll see how it goes this year.
Right.
And we'll see if I'm right.
Well, I'm telling you, I love the fact that they are playing a team like Duke. I'm super excited about it. I would not be excited if they were playing like Maryland Eastern Shore, the first round of whatever thing that you want to put together. So I'm glad.
Come on, Maryland Eastern Shore. It's at least against a league champion. I mean, that's got to be a decent team. But I see. I see your side on that sub in or sub out. So it is fair. But all right. Well, let's wrap this thing up. We'll be back next week to recap things, get some more overreactions.
Right. Can we tease any people or players or like?
Like guests?
Yeah, because
I'll tell you one thing. I am so bad as far as getting guests on. I wait until like the day before, and then I'm like, oh, we need a guest. Luckily, we got the current head coach of the Jayhawks on,
right?
So I'm doing something right. But I'm as far as planning for this, I'm not great at that. But
so I can't put a little bit more of time into it. Maybe we could get, I don't know. I mean, somebody else. Like,
let's just ask you this: if you had like the highest, if you could say the best guest for a Kansas basketball podcast, who would it be?
Bring Coach Self back on. Maybe he could be a part of the glue guys permanently. He just comes on every week.
You know what would be fun? That I don't think we could set up, but would be fun, is if we did like a live watch with him of the Duke game. That would do numbers right there.
That's what I'm saying.
I should have thought about this way before, but wouldn't that be fun if he was sitting at home and we had him on the show watching live? And
like, this is what I would do.
The Peyton and Eli, they do it for Monday Night Football. We just do it for. All right. Well, I'll message him.
You just fly to Kansas. You two take care of that.
I mean, that's doing a little more. That would have been smart if I was good enough at planning ahead. I could have planned that, but it's a little late notice now. So
yeah, that's true.
All right, we're dragging along, so we'll go ahead and end this now. Thank you for listening. Obviously, leave comments, like all that stuff. Let us know if there's anything you want to change about the show or anything you like about the show. We're always open to feedback, and we will be back next week if we don't set some miracle live stream with Coach Self for Tuesday up. We'll be back next week
in 48 hours.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'll text him after this and ask what he's doing, because I am curious. I think it would be fun to, even if it's during halftime, if we did like a live thing with him to get his reaction. So
that'd be awesome.
All right,
make it happen.
We'll talk to you later. See you guys.